The scripture reading for this morning is John chapter 16, verses 1 through 4. These things I have spoken to you, that you should not be made to stumble. They will put you out of the synagogues. Yes, the time is coming that whoever kills you will think that he offers God's service. And these things they will do to you, because they have not known the Father or me. But these things I have told you, that when the time comes you may remember that I told you of them. And these things I did not say to you at the beginning, because I was with you.
You look around, excuse me, look around at things going on, and we live in a hateful world for truth. And one thing that the world is hateful toward, that seems to be increasing in a lot of ways, is toward the church, towards God's people. There is a lot of hatred toward us because we stand for something that the world doesn't stand for. And that's a good thing, folks, by the way. Don't quit standing. But that hatred comes in a lot of various forms, and we see it in a lot of ways. Church shootings, other things have been coming up, especially in the last few weeks. We've been thinking about it more, about how the church is persecuted, how people hate us. But we'll look at some of that this morning, but also look at the ways in which the church is facing hatred and persecution that's coming in other ways, that people are trying their best to hinder the work of the church, of us, in a lot of different ways. They're doing things that are hateful, yet they call us hateful because we don't agree with them. They're doing things that are mean, and they call us mean. They're doing things that are unacceptable because they think we are not accepting of them. And it's interesting. One thing that I think you've noticed, like I have throughout the years, that the people that always point the fingers are usually the one guilty of doing what they accuse you of. They used to tell us, if you point the finger at somebody, you got at least three pointing right back at you. And folks, that's true in a situation we're going to look at today. So we'll look at things maybe a little differently than what we normally do. I think my battery's dying. Oh, there it goes. I got it. Here's something I want to look at first. We'll look at some other things in just a moment. That God's people have always been in the line of fire of people to hate them. Now have up Exodus chapter 1. And that passage is the beginning of what we know as the Egyptian bondage. And what is going on is this. You have a new kingdom in place that has been taken over, years before. You have God's people there, and they look around, the king does, or the Pharaoh looks around and sees that God's people are becoming more numerous than the Egyptians. And there was fear that they would rise up and take them over just because of sheer numbers. So the Bible says that they set taskmasters over them. They beat them. They put them in slavery is what they did. They kept them under their thumb, kept them in subjection, put them in a place where they couldn't fight back, or at least they didn't think they could, put them in this situation, and they put them there and held them down there. But the Bible says that the more they afflicted or more they persecuted them, the more they multiplied and grew. Now, folks, that is a statement that has stuck with me for years. That when you look at God's people of any era, once they start receiving any kind of persecution, it's always going to be there. What it really does is helps a cause grow. And the devil and all those people, or his minions, whoever they may be, whatever name they may go by, have yet to learn that lesson. They think by making life hard on God's people, they're going to get rid of us. And in every instance in history, including ours, all we've done is gotten stronger. All we've done is gotten better. You know, it often comes up, people say, why do we have so-and-so in office? So-and-so that's destroying the moral fabric of the country, or so-and-so that's doing this, that's passing laws. Why are these laws being passed? Why are these things going on? And I tell you what I think is to wake us up. Folks, when we sit idle for too long, and if we had every leader in this country that comes down the pike that is Christian in their belief, that is very moral, that never caused anything, if you look back at history yet again, you know what's going to happen? God's people get lax. Our backbone grows weak, if not non-existent. And folks, we, if anything, had better have a strong backbone, because we're going to be challenged. One of the troubles I've had for years with weak Christians, they get mad over every little drop of a hat and wear the feelings on the sleeves. Folks, you better toughen up. You think I'm mean? Wait till you get out in the world. You'll see what mean really is. But we're strong. But you know what the text says there in verse 12 at the end of it? They, talking about the Hebrew people, or the Egyptian people, sometimes it's translated fear. New King James says dread. They had a dread or a fear of them. Look at what really the cause of persecution is. They fear us, folks. They're scared of us. Little o' us, can you imagine? They're scared of Christian and godly people. And that's still the case as it was then as it is now. That they are afraid of us. You know why people are mean and hateful to something? Because they don't understand it or they're afraid of it. Those two come out every time. That's what a bully does. They're fearful not necessarily of who they're bullying, but they have something that they're fearful of inside. They are insecure. Bullies bully because they're insecure. You challenge them and they stop every time. He could be 10 feet tall, but he's really a coward. You know what people do that persecute and make life hard on Christians? They're cowards. Plain and simple. They get a platform and they think they've got it made. Folks, the church has withstood the test of time. But folks that have challenged the church, you know about the great Egyptian empire today, don't you? And the pharaohs they have? No. How about the Grecian Empire? How about the Roman Empire? How about the Babylonian Empire? Median Empire? Persian Empire? You know what you're saying? I don't really even think about them anymore except for Bible class when we study how they used to be. What about God's empire? As strong and powerful as she's ever been. We've withstood the test of time. We've understood the passage there in Exodus chapter 1, 11 and 12. We understood that they dread or fear us because of who we are, because we actually have a backbone. That we can stand up even by ourselves because we know that we're never by ourselves. That God is always with us. We don't have to have a crowd of people attacking one person like I see people do today. You watch the news very much. And then they wear masks on top of that. Cowardly is all it is. The one person that attacks stands up and they walk away strong from what they see. Jesus there, bumped my button again. Jesus there in Matthew chapter 5 and what we call the Sermon on the Mount, one thing that he does there is to help edify the folks of that time is to look at the situation at hand that's going on and to remember, especially in verse 12, that they've always persecuted God's people. Because he says, they also persecuted the prophets that were before you. What you're seeing now, he said then, 2,000 years ago, has been seen 2,000 years before this, and 1,000 years before this, and will be seen 1,000 years later and 2,000 years after that, and 2,000 years after this, if the world still stands. God's people are going to see the persecution and the hatred of the world. It's the way things are. That's why there's so many passages, Old and especially in the New Testament, that tell us to be strengthened, to tell us not to be caught off guard and not to be surprised. I've told you before, when I study with someone before I baptize them, I tell them that it's going to be a great life they're looking into now. But not to expect peaches and cream and not to put on the rose-colored glasses. Because that's not what the Bible teaches. The Bible teaches that what we're going to see is people that hate us. But I sure like folks to be prepared before they go into battle than to go in there and not have their guard up at all. But to understand what they're getting into. Yes, a better life. Yes, a better afterlife. Yes, a better everything. Well, folks, persecution and hatred is going to be there. It's always been around, and it will always be ahead. Advance that for me. I don't think this is working at all. Thank you. Now, here's the question that comes up. Why? Why do people hate us? Why do these things happen? What's going on? When Paul wrote to Timothy, encouraging him in his preaching, by the way, and what the persecution that he was going to see by himself is, he said, here's what's going to happen, that things are going to be ugly, things are going to be hateful, people are going to hate you just because of what you do for a living, and that's just as true now as it was at the end. You're going to have all this hatred's going to be there because it's the way the world is. Evil men and impostors are going to grow worse and worse, he says. People are going to hate you. If you live godly in Christ Jesus, he says you're going to suffer persecution. Notice, please, that is a guarantee. That is a promise of godly living is going to bring it on. Those things are going to be there. When, at that time, Saul of Tarsus was persecuting the church, he gathered letters from the synagogues in Damascus, and he was going out, and he was bringing men and women into prison. He despised people. He hated people of Christian faith. People do so for various reasons, for zeal, for the things we mentioned a moment ago. All these different things are going to happen, and it happens all the time. I think you noticed the picture up there, right? That's the clean part of it. Trust me, it gets far worse than what you see, and often they don't have guns, they have machetes and swords when they take a head off. And by the way, it doesn't happen like it does in the movies of one clean sweep. Just a little realism there for us, folks. And people see this. People see hatred all the time. I can't believe even CNN reported it. Ask me about it after all of that. All right, advance one more time, please. Now, here's something I want to look at. I'm not just picking on the Southern Poverty Law Center, but they are a big one that sticks out there, and there are a lot of groups of this stripe. And I want to show you some things that are going on that you may not be aware of in the world. And I looked at their website and I read through a lot of things, and I've read through stuff before. And one thing we see in situations like these guys here and others, now it sounds good, right? Southern Poverty Law Center. It's Southerners, so they're all godly and got guns, right? I know what you think. It's poverty. We're taking care of folks that are less fortunate. Law is always good, isn't it? We've got to keep the law up, and it's the center for all these, the headquarters for all these things. Now, here's something about it that we need to understand. Here's what they'll say on their website. They are committed to ending hate and bigotry and teaching tolerance, more tolerance. There is a word that we've lost the meaning of, haven't we, in our society? You know, I can tolerate something, but it doesn't mean I approve of it. We tolerate sin. We have to. It's going to be around, right? But does it mean we approve of it because we tolerate it? No, they say toleration means you got to just do what I want you to do. Well, I'm sorry, hon, but it's time to back up. That's not the way the church works. You don't tell God what to do. He tells you what to do. But you have these situations like this, and these folks actually encourage intolerance, and they're actually pro-sin. Advance one more time for me, Evan. Now, here's something I want to look at for just a minute. Here's something you'll see on this website and other websites that are claimed to be pro-good things, right? Here's something you're going to run into. Now, here's what you have: an assault on Christianity. They say an opposition to LGBTQ. If you don't know what that is, let me explain it just for a second. I'll have a whole sermon on this later on. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer or questioning or both. They can't make up their minds. Now, that's their wording, not mine, by the way. That's all of their wording. They like to say questioning because people are questioning who they are. But if you go to LGBT, then you question and want to go back, they have a fit and won't let you go back. So much for fairness and Q, right? Anyway, I digress. That's another sermon in and of itself. If you have opposition to any of these things, abortion and illegal immigration, then you are a hate group or an extremist. By the way, welcome to the club. Welcome to the club. But notice, please, how they label these things. Hate group. Again, an opposition or not agreeing with someone else doesn't mean we hate them. For Pete's sake, how many times do we have to say that? Because I disagree with someone doesn't mean I hate them. Just because somebody disagrees with me doesn't mean I hate them. You know, it's a hard life when you turn to an adult, isn't it? Someday these people are going to turn into one. People are going to disagree with you. People are not going to like you. Get over it, rub your bumps, and get back into the game. But that's what they say. Oh, that's what these Christian groups are. That's what they are. When you look on their website and you look under the hate groups and extremist groups, the first thing you see is a large picture up there before you get down to the wording that has pictures of KKK, pictures of the extremist white supremacists with sticks and swastika tattoos and bandanas. You see other things like the skinheads, and you see them out there clubbing people, some old man to death or something like that. You see that. Then you get down in there, and guess who's lumped in there? But Christian groups. Now, you know, we often say a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? Well, what have they just described with one picture about a Christian group? If they're opposed to all of these things, then they are a hate group or an extremist. Funny, but the real religious extremist groups, they don't even talk about them. You know the people I showed you a moment ago with the guns there? Not even mentioned. Guess who's really scared of them? Who doesn't really like to stand for truth? And that's what we're seeing here, folks. We're seeing this sort of thing. Advance one more time, Evan. And think about this for just a moment. Pull the first one up, please. Here's what you're going to see under hate and extremist groups. After you look through the pictures, as you go down through, you see more hate-filled people, really hate people, that beat people up, that kill people, that think that white people are the best, or black people are the best, or Hispanic, or whatever. All these groups in there. You name it. Groups I never even heard of are there. And you start looking through, and you'll see anti-immigrant. Now let's stop for just a moment. I don't want to get on a big soapbox, but hang on just a second. I don't think any of us have any problem with immigrants, because most of us, when you go back at least 2 or 3 generations, are. I'm a white dude. Guess where my folks came from? Europe, right? Western Europe in particular. Come on. It's not that big a secret, is it? What do we have a problem? You know what they say? They even have a group listed in a place called Lakewood, Colorado, that is a hate group because they oppose illegals coming in here and living under our protection. You mean they uphold the law? How scary. Yet that's hate group. I'm telling you what, people, they twist things on purpose, move around. Advance one more time, Evan. You'll see anti-LGBTQ. If you don't approve of a man marrying a man, a woman marrying a woman, of these couples adopting children, of all the other things that go on, the L's, the G's, the B's, the T's, and the Q's, and it really is, etc. They keep adding stuff all the time. Usually add a plus when they end it, because you can just throw anything in there. If I want to be a banana, I can be a banana. And don't you dare call me something else. And if you oppose anything else, if you stand where the Bible stands, folks, we are a hate group. As of now, according to these folks and others, as of now, Christian churches, and what they mean is congregations like here or Baptist church or whatever else, aren't classified under those because they're not a specific organization like certain groups, Family Research Council and some of those, that they label as that. And I said for now. I believe we know how the wind blows in situations like this. As of now, we're not. So one more time, Evan. Anti-Muslim. No. Anti-radical. Don't you like your head sitting on top of your neck? Your house not exploded in 1,000 pieces? Come on, folks. It's time to get over being bashful. That's put us in the state we're in now. Remember what I said about politicians and things that go on? If we're not awake, folks, let me quit hitting the snooze and let's wake up. The world hates us as a whole. One more time, Evan. Anti-Semitic. I don't like that phrase anyway, because most Jews today aren't Semitic in origin anyway. They're a white dude just like I am from somewhere. But the idea is anything against Jewish people. Now here's the thing. I don't think anyone in here does or ever will want to go out and hate or be extreme against an illegal or legal immigrant, whatever. Beat them up, kick them, shoot them, stab them, do anything else. Or LGBTQ, or Muslim, or Semitic. If you do, you need to come see me because, folks, that is hate. And that is extreme. But we never even begin to talk about that. You know what we often do within the Lord's church? Everything against it. I can't convert anybody that way. That's not real conversion. We don't do any of those things. But, hit it one more time from heaven. You know what is noticeably absent from this group? All right, and again, I didn't see that anywhere. And I read even in the credits in the bottom, I clicked on stuff that had nothing to do with anything else. And I said, where is the anti-Christian groups? Why aren't they hate-filled? And isn't that a legitimate question, church? Why is it everybody else up there, if you do any of those, you're hate? But anti-Christian, oh, that's okay. That's okay. You know what I hear a lot? You probably hear it too or read about it a lot. Look, that's their religion, whatever it is. Just let them do it. We can't interfere with that. But a Christian wants to pray in school or a coach wants to pray after a football game, don't renew his contract. That happened in D.C. 3 years ago. Florida about 3 years before that. How awful. How awful. He's probably organizing them to come back and stab us or something. Those 15-year-olds. Crusades. All of a sudden, Christianity doesn't get the same fair shake as anyone else. But I just noticed that it was absent on every page all the way through that website, and I scoured it all. And there was never a thing said about being anti-Christian to label. And folks, I'm pretty sure that's not by accident. Because it's okay to hate Christians. Because after all, they're the ones that hate us. They're the ones that don't believe in abortion. They're the ones that don't believe in LGBTQ, etc. They don't believe in this. They don't do this. They need to be hated. But all we see time and time again is we need to have no hate zones. I've read an article about when they were trying to put a Chick-fil-A in Duquesne University, 2017. They were going to put a Chick-fil-A in Duquesne University on campus, and they're on most campuses now. That and other things too. Going to put it in, but the students there for equality and tolerance, and they love their words. They just don't know what they mean. You know, go back to English class and find a real English teacher to teach you some words, would you? And they start going through all these things, and they said, several of the students were quoted, and I kid you not, I don't feel safe with Chick-fil-A on campus. I am not lying. If I'm lying, I'm done. I do not feel safe with Chick-fil-A. You know how mean Chick-fil-A is. Going to drown you in lemonade, I guess. Hit you with a spicy chicken. Didn't feel safe. I don't feel safe with people like that in the world. You? Anybody ever thought about an invasion of this country? We got those folks standing up for us. Get your chicken sandwiches ready. And I see stuff like that. I read stuff like that all the time. And that's the mentality that people have been taught. Mean old chicken. You know why Chick-fil-A is so mean, right? Because they oppose ungodly behavior. But they're never mean about it. They hire homosexuals, lesbians, others. They say, that's fine. But you follow our policy. That's the world, folks. You work for somebody, you do what they say. Welcome to the working world. Speaking of Chick-fil-A, they have crawfish on their stances. Do you see that? They're no longer sponsoring to Christian charities like they used to. They've wiped them all out, and they're trying to go generic now to just homeless and that sort of thing. Of all the people that I ever thought would crawfish on something, it was Chick-fil-A. But it's been a big statement the last several weeks now in the news that they have crawfished, and now they're not doing that, and they're just a step away. They'll be open on Sundays before you know it. Folks, that disappoints me. That disappoints me a lot. Now they're starting to scare me. Now I don't feel safe. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to worry about Chick-fil-A. But that's just some of the stuff, the rhetoric we see out there. Go ahead and advance for me. Folks, listen. With all that talk about Southern Poverty Law Center, and again, I use them because they're probably the largest group in this country, organized group that puts off the perception that they're good, that they're helping us, and they're watching out for us, so we're not going to be slammed by any of these mean people and everything. And they have wicked groups. They got black supremacists, white supremacists, and KKK and all that stuff on there. They have those on there too, which makes it even worse when they throw up Christian organizations on there too, though. That's what bothers me. But think about these thoughts for just a moment with me. In reality, we had read John 16 a moment ago, and the thing that Jesus told the soon-to-be apostles going out in the world still has an application to us. That they were going to be persecuted. He said in verse 2, people are going to kill you and think they're doing a service for God. And do we not still see that very thing? People call out the name of their God before they pull the trigger, swing the sword, or whatever it is they do. Or call out the name of their God, whatever that God may be, before they try to shut down Christian businesses, try to do other things, try to bully the Chick-fil-A's and others around. And it happens. Organizations that fly under the banner of Christianity, business and others, have changed their policies drastically within the last 5 years. Drastically, many of them. That you can't even recognize it anymore, and there's no separation like there used to be. Those things are going to be there. Worldwide in 2018, 3,000 people were killed who professed the name of Christian. Worldwide. 3,000. Don't hear that on the evening news, do you? 100 since 1999 at least, maybe a few others. I figured in white settlement in there too. At least 100 in church-related shootings, as we call them. There's also synagogues that have been hit quite a bit, and other places of houses of worship, if you will, that have been hit as well. Mainstream news shows it for a blurb and then goes on to something else serious like impeachment or something else. You know, the serious business of the country. Never mind people are dying just because they have faith in something besides the dollar or government or anything else that they're after us. Legislation, I'm not going to get into all of it, but I want to mention just a couple of things this morning. With the legislation we're seeing changing all the time. Matter of fact, most people aren't even aware of it. They can slip these things in a moment, and they try to, some of these politicians really force them through. And next thing you know, there's a law on the books that says something like this. New York has, for example, has laws on the books that any Christian organization, not churches right now as an individual congregation, but Christian schools, adoption agencies, and others can't discriminate against anyone because of their sexual preference, gender preference, and many other things. In other words, if I go into a Christian adoption agency, if two men go in there and say we want to adopt, they can't turn them away. If they want to work there, they don't have to profess the doctrinal creeds of that community, of that institution anymore. They can go in there and be an atheist for all that matters. They've taken that away. Did you know that? Of course we didn't know much about that because it's suppressed from us. And it's coming right on down the pike, left and right, of Christian persecution. You see what they've done, folks? They've backed up and looked at the situation and said, you know, for hundreds of years they thought just killing everybody was going to fix it. But you know what we've done? We found a better way. Let's make it difficult. Let's make them compromise. Let's pressure to where they're going to do things they are through the Christian adoption agency, the Christian schools. One thing about Christian schools, be it in the lower grades or in college, either one, is that you have people that are going to be teaching that at least profess Christianity, live a life, have a creed, that sort of thing, follow the Bible, etc. Not more in a lot of places. They're doing the best they can to do away with it. College campuses have for years had Christian organizations on them. You know, a house associated with the Church of Christ, the Baptist, the Catholic, the whatever. They are doing their best. Some places in California have already disbanded those because they're, you guessed it, hate groups. So we can't have those anymore. See, when you redefine the law, redefine language, and redefine morality, you can make it whatever you want it to be. Are you standing strong first, church? One more time, Evan. Are you standing strong? Let me encourage you with this. 1 Corinthians 15:58, at the end of the last verse of that chapter, Paul encourages the church in Corinth, much like we still need our encouragement today against all facets of evil. Because I can assure you that when I concede to evil, when I concede in any way that I compromise and say, okay, yeah, we're going to hire somebody new for the church here. We need to hire someone who is LGBTQ plus, because we need to make sure that people aren't. We need to start having gay weddings in our auditorium so we don't get people breathing down our necks. Let me tell you what that does. Nothing. They're going to breathe harder down your necks. They're going to make you do this. They're going to make you do that. They're going to start passing more legislation after it. Folks, there are a lot of laws on the book now. Do you know that in California, that if you're under 18 years of age and you feel like you're one of the LGBTQs or anything else, that you cannot go and pay somebody to counsel you to change your thought pattern? That is against the law and punishable by many years in prison. The parents can't do it either. And again, folks, I'm touching the tip of the iceberg. And I know negative. I told you. That's why I want to end with this. Something positive. But folks, listen. Negative, not want to look at the negative of what gets us in a sticky widget anyway. Not looking at the bad outcomes that can happen. Not looking at the world we live in is not all seen through rose-colored glasses. But it is a world of hate, and it hates us. But folks, if we learn nothing else from 1 Corinthians 15:58 through all of the Bible, all the way through, remember, people fear us, dread us, but we always win in the end. If we stay true, if we don't compromise our faith with the faith of God, and we stay true, and folks, listen, we have to fight the battle. When Paul was about to end his days in his, quite literally, his eulogy, he said, I have fought a good fight. Don't tell me that Christianity is just a coast. It's a fight. And if we don't stand up and fight, the enemy is going to win. At least against us. Maybe not against the church. So therefore, my beloved brethren, can you be steadfast? Can you be immovable? Can you always abound in the work of the Lord? Because after all, we know, doesn't he say? 1 Corinthians 15:58. We know that our labor is not in vain in the Lord. Folks, that's encouragement. That's strength. And that's our backbone. That backbone that folks are caving on, they're buckling on under the Christian faith. That backbone that some folks need to understand that they have and grow it. Strengthen it. Make it strong. They're not going to break us no matter what they do. Did the Hebrews come out of Egyptian bondage? And how? By the millions they came out. With riches galore, with food galore, going to a land of promise. They withstood. And so can we. Folks, if you're here, you're not a child of God, the only way to make sure you ensure you're going to heaven is to do what God says. Yes, it's going to be a bumpy road at times. It sure is. But is your life just perfect now without Jesus Christ? I dare say it's not. But I know one thing. I have hope. I have assurance. I have all those things, the joy, all those things are going to be there as a child of God. And you've got folks with you now that look, that watch, and understand the things that are going on. And it makes us strong, and it makes us part of that great force that God calls the church. Or maybe you are what you've fallen and you need the strength, folks. You need the prayers of the church. Hey, don't hesitate. Let's pray with you and for you. Won't you come while we stand and while we sing?